Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I'm about to give you some more information. The topic today is a coup d'etat that actually took place this past Saturday night, 6/6/2020. Yes, I'm going to repeat a little bit of information that was in yesterday's broadcast. I have to be able to fit all of this together, but I'm also going to be bringing you some new information. Now, before I get into it, first of all, let me give you some information about the crusade. Because of the COVID, this is nothing to do with what we want to do, nor what the Hyatt wants to do, but based upon Dallas County, which the Hyatt is located in, they require such things to be done. So here's what we had to do because of social distancing. We've had to go to two crusades back to back. We're calling them Crusade A, Crusade B. Most of you are already signed up for Crusade A, which is July 29 to August 2. However, immediately after that one, we're going to go into a second crusade because we can't get all the people into the room because of the 6-foot social distancing. Can't get around it. It's required. So when we stop August the 2nd at about noon, we will start another one, a Crusade B, that evening, August the 2nd, at about 5 p.m. So if you are registered for Crusade A, and that's probably most of you, and you have not heard from anyone at the Prophecy Club, we need to contact you. Please email us at crusade@prophecyclub.com. Very simple, crusade@prophecyclub.com. Right now, we have some openings in A, but most of the people that are reserved for A that we haven't been able to contact, we're going to have to ask them, many of those that can, to move to Crusade B. Either way, if you have not been contacted in the last 24 hours or the last few days by someone from the Prophecy Club, please email us at crusade@prophecyclub.com. Now, back to the coup d'etat. So what is the definition of a coup d'etat? It is the forcible removal of an existing government from power through violent means. Typically, it is an illegal, unconstitutional seizure of power by a political faction, the military, or dictator. Only in this case, it's what you would call the deep state. Here's what happened. Saturday, 6/6/2020, 6/6, did you catch that as in 666? Saturday, 6/6/2020, is the anniversary date of D-Day. And it is, unless I'm wrong here, it's the first coup d'etat in America. History repeats itself. It has to. No one learned from it. So I looked up what actually happened on D-Day. Here's a summarized version. The Normandy Landings were the water and air landing operations Tuesday, June 6, 1944, of the Allied invasion of Normandy during World War II. The operation began with the liberation of German-occupied France and started the Allied victory on the Western Front. Planning for the operation began a year before a substantial military deception misled the enemy. I think that's exactly what has happened here once again. The evil elite planned this. In other words, 76 years after the Normandy invasion, June 6, 1944, the Illuminati, the Moloch and Baal worshipping, child sacrifice and pedophilia international bankers, deep state, folks like George Soros and company, attempted a modern coup d'etat on the White House and President Trump. Let me say that again. This is so important. 76 years after the June 6, 1944 Allied invasion of Normandy, the Illuminati, the Moloch Baal worshipping, child sacrifice, pedophilia international bankers, deep state, folks like George Soros and company, attempted a modern coup d'etat on our White House and our beloved President Donald Trump. Now, let me refresh your memory. Dmitry Duduman's internal revolution, I believe, according to what I just said the other day, started this past Saturday, 6/6/2020, D-Day anniversary. In other words, I'm now saying officially that the 7 signs that was given to Leslie by the audible voice of God, January the 22nd of 2006, of those 7 signs, I'm now officially saying the first one has been fulfilled. Brothers and sisters, it is very important that I get this information out to all of America. You can help. No cost to you. You can help by simply going down and clicking like and then sharing this with your friends, and you and your friends subscribing. Then the algorithm in YouTube will send it out to more people. So click like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. For 33 years, I've hollered and screamed at the top of my voice, done everything I can to try to tell America that she's in the process of falling. So let me refresh your memory and tie this all together for you. The angel came to Dmitri Duduman in 1984 and showed him California, Las Vegas, New York, and Florida. And he said, this is Sodom and Gomorrah. In one day it will burn. He said, how? America's so strong. He said, the fall of America will start. Let me say that again. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution. I believe that happened 6/6/2020 this past Saturday night. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America, started by the communists. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and 2 other countries will attack. The Russians will bombard the nuclear missiles, and America will burn. God will raise up China and Japan and many other nations. They'll go against the Russians and defeat the Russians and back them to the gates of Paris. They'll make a peace treaty, but they make the Russians their leader. With all the nations as the Russians as the leader, they go down to attack little Israel. It's Armageddon. Israel doesn't have the help of the Jews in America, so she cries the Messiah. And Jesus defeats the armies attacking Israel and burns the tares, slashes the grapes, and gives us our glorified body, rewards, crowns, and mantles, all in one day on the Feast of Trumpets. In all of these 33 years, I have never looked up the definition of revolution. I looked it up. It means a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system. All of these years, I had been looking for the wrong things. I'd been watching for something like a riot or anarchy or something like that. Well, that's not what the prophecy said. It didn't say riot. A riot, according to definition, is a violent public disorder. It did not say anarchy in terms of absence of government. It said a revolution, a forcible overthrow of a government by force. That happened Saturday night. Let me tell you more about it. So Dimitri's prophecy of an internal revolution, in my opinion, was fulfilled Saturday night, 6/6/2020. Here's what happened. Monday, June 1, President Donald Trump on Monday threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act, a centuries-old law that gives the president the authority to send in the military into cities and towns to quash domestic unrest if state governors don't take sufficient action to quell the ongoing protests and unrest happening in the cities across the country. Quote, if a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of the residents, then I will deploy United States military and quickly solve the problem for them, Donald Trump. And after he got done with that particular talk in the House Rose Garden, he picked up the Bible, he walked about a block away, he stood in front of the St. Joseph Church that was burned the night before, and he lifted up the Bible. When he lifted up the Bible, we did not know it, but he saved America. Let me explain. So the next day, Tuesday, June 2nd, Trump called in 1,600 military troops to Washington, D.C. I believe it was the hand of God saving our nation, because the day before, Trump lifted up that Bible. The announcement came after Democratic governors in Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware turned down requests from Defense Secretary Mark Esper to offer National Guard troops to help with security in Washington, D.C. Now we go to Hal Turner. June 2, he says China smuggled fully automatic weapons into the U.S. for use by rioters in cities, confirmed by the London Daily Mail. This was reported June 9, 2020. Quote, the London Daily Mail is reporting that gang members in Chicago are walking around the city with fully automatic AK-47 machine guns. Yes, I know the report was for Chicago, but other reports said they also made it to Washington, D.C. will continue. He says the United States of America is in the early stages of an actual insurrection. Again, this is Hal Turner. He goes on to say, riots and looting take place in many major cities are not spontaneous, grassroots, or an outpouring of anger over the death of George Floyd. Instead, they're carefully scripted, race-based incitement to attack our constitutional republic. You see, he doesn't understand what's really happening. It's more than that. This, my brothers and sisters, is the fall of America. These events are being fomented, enabled, and coordinated by certain elected officials, certain political party leaders. For years, communists, he says, have thought that a race-based methodology would best suit their goals of turning the United States into a communist nation, whether by peaceful or violent means. This cabal of sick, twisted, satanic-inspired communist people has worked tirelessly toward their goal of destroying the greatest example of freedom and self-governments in Earth history. So, bent on control, money, and power, these people will literally stop at nothing to undermine, erode, sabotage, and forcibly, hear that word, forcibly overthrow our way of life. To them, the end justifies the means. That is the overriding principle that they follow. This is not new. The communists have been working this plan since 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Now, Thursday, June 4, Defense Secretary Mark T. Esper initially tried to send home a small portion of the 1,600 active duty troops called in by Trump on Wednesday, only to have Mr. Trump order him to reverse course during an angry meeting. The president finally acquiesced on Thursday, according to the administration official who asked not to be named. Mr. Esper ordered 700 airborne soldiers to head back to Fort Bragg. My opinion, Mr. Esper was part of the problem. The remaining 900 soldiers could withdraw. More than 2,000 National Guard forces remain in Washington, a number set to climb to 4,400. The government fortified the square, adding concrete barriers behind chain-link fences installed earlier in the week and extending the fences further around the White House. That, my brothers and sisters, was the hand of God. Friday night, President Trump saved America. After the news conference, as I said, he walked to St. Joseph Church, a block away from the White House. He stood in front of the church and lifted up a Bible over his head. He saved America. I believe President Trump, by lifting the Bible, moved the hand of God to once again give America more time, to stop a coup d'etat to take place in only 24 hours later. In walking to the church, the protesters had to be forced back one more block. And in backing up the protesters, the White House security discovered something. They discovered that these were not just peaceful protesters. These were militants who had pre-positioned not just rocks and bricks, but weapons. Now, I can't find a source, but my guess is probably they were AK-47s, the same ones the other report said China provided. By taking the Bible, it was revealed that if he didn't already know to prepare for the invasion, the coup d'etat, by lifting up the Word of God, I believe God's hand intervened. Shortly later, like 6 hours later, on June 4th, the same night that Donald Trump lifted up the Bible, there was a lightning strike to the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument is a phallic symbol. It is a symbol of everything evil. And by God striking that, I believe that he was saying, America, I just delivered you again. Now, we're still talking Friday night. President Trump called in the 1,600 U.S. military, fully armed to protect the White House. But he hit some resistance, as I said. There's more. The D.C. mayor then tells Trump in an official letter to remove 1,200 federal law enforcement and military from his city. A local hotel housing some of the soldiers kicked the soldiers out of the hotel, saying the Army doesn't have the money to pay the hotel bill. How ridiculous, just stupid. Several more military generals resigned at the fact that he had called the military in to protect the White House. Then Mark Esper, the Secretary of Defense, had stated he was against using the military against American citizens. Looking back now, it probably was part of the plot to overthrow the president and take back control of the nuclear football and thus control of America. It gets worse. Now let's go to what Benjamin Fulford said at benjaminfulford.net. Quote, "The forces of light scored a huge victory against the Khazarian Satanists as their long-awaited 2020 offensive was stopped dead in its tracks. Multiple sources agree. Instead of massive bloodshed involving armed demonstrator (million-man occupation of the White House) and the U.S. military, there was simply a small, peaceful march against racism. This was because the armed saboteurs and their financial backers were all rounded up before... Let me read that again. The armed saboteurs and their financial backers were all rounded up before the planned climax of mayhem, Pentagon sources say. Even those of us that are not religious, again, this is Benjamin Fulford talking, took note that very unusual lightning strike hit the Washington Memorial immediately before the 6/6 offensive fizzled out. Now, again, I believe that was God hitting the phallic symbol of the Moloch ball worshipping international deep state bankers trying to overthrow President Trump. The plan was stopped. I believe it was divine intervention, aimed to use massive bloodshed to replace the Republic of the United States with a draconian totalitarian government. He goes on to say, as Rothschild frontman George Soros told Bild magazine back in September 2014, quote, "I'm going to bring down the U.S. by funding black hate groups. We'll put them into a mental trap and make them blame white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate," unquote. George Soros. Going on with Benjamin Fulford, he continued to say the U.S. military intelligence says the rioting was stopped, but only after 1,000 armed looters were shot. In addition, by the way, does that sound like violence? Does that sound like an overtake by force? Does that sound like the definition of a coup d'etat? Does that sound like the definition of an internal revolution started by the communists? An internal revolution started by the communists? The fall of America will start. The fall of America will start. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution. Does that sound like it? Does to me. In addition to the U.S. and Russian special forces teams went around hunting down and killing the financiers and Khazarian agents stoking the flames. Also, on June 5th, the U.S. military White House, listen to this, found and disarmed 3 nuclear devices, seized countless pipe bombs, and arrested 2 snipers, according to NSA sources. Now, let me back up. What has this ministry been saying all the way back since, 1997, when we had Stanislav Lunev in to say that he was part of a group that searched for places to hide anywhere from 20 to 50 suitcase nukes? Have I not been saying through several different places that suitcase nukes are out there and will go off? I don't think the suitcase nukes have all been rounded up. I pray every day, Lord, cause those suitcase nukes to be found, disarmed, dismantled, and justice brought to the people behind them. I suspect that when he says the White Hats found and disarmed 3 nuclear devices, I'll bet you those were suitcase nukes. Now, why would people attacking the White House need suitcase nukes? Well, again, I don't know. I was never in the military, but I'll give you my guess. I bet you they know that there's an underground facility under the White House, an underground bunker to protect the president. And I bet you they know that there's 3 barriers that they have to get past. And they're going to use, or we're going to use, those suitcase nukes to blast them free. They were going to reach the president. They were going to take control of the nuclear football, which is a black suitcase that has control of all of our nukes, both land and sea based. And with that, they were going to take control of America. They couldn't get Trump out 3 different ways. Now they're going to take him out by force. Now, let's go on. Back to Benjamin Fulford. In any case, Trump's attempt to use the military to shoot down civilians caused a long overdue Pentagon revolt against his rule. The 11 retired 4-stars, I think he's referring to 4-star generals, who criticized Trump for using the military to suppress protests, were taking the Trump presidency. Now, here's the way I would say that. The 11 retired 4-star generals actually conspired together to overthrow the Trump presidency. Now, let me give you a disclaimer before I read this next paragraph. All of this that I'm about to say does not come from me. I'm going to read this next paragraph without comment because I can't talk about this, but you need to listen carefully. Benjamin Fulford says, and I quote, "Finally, there is a meeting scheduled this week between the representatives of Eastern and Western secret societies aimed at finalizing the global currency reset. If the meeting goes well, virtually unlimited funding will be made available for ending poverty, stopping environmental destruction, and promoting human colonization of the universe. However, there is unlikely to be an immediate announcement, even if the agreement is reached. That is, because a lot of technical work will need to be done to turn an agreement into principle, into reality on the ground. Remember, the goal is not to, quote, get the bad guys, but to save the planet and start a new age, unquote. Now, the only thing I'm going to say about that is that has to do with the QFS system, which we've talked about from finalwakeupcall.info. It also has to do with Proverbs 13:22, where it says, "The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just." I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, finalwakeupcall.info says that there's a new financial system coming. If that's true, then that would make sense. Okay, so why would they want to overthrow the president? Well, because some 27,000 of them have already been arrested, and the count of the unsealed indictments, I need to get the exact number, but it's something like 176,000 sealed indictments out there. And they're about to kick out the Khazarians, the international bankers, out of owning and controlling the world's financial system to set up a new financial system going around them. Hal Turner, June 5th, 2020. Headline, Coup d'etat against President Trump this weekend, ? Well, I'm not going to put a question mark. I'm going to put an asterisk. I'm going to say absolutely positively. But I'm saying it not only from the sources that I find from public, but I'm saying it because of the sources from the prophets. And we're going to get there. That is, I'm trying to get there. If I can get there today, and it doesn't look like I'm going to. But nevertheless, let's go on. Intelligence sources are saying the move by the mayor of Washington, D.C. to, quote, order National Guard troops out of her city, paired with the Pentagon's move to disarm troops remaining in the city, and doing that without White House approval, just hours before 1 million Black Lives Matter and Antifa militants roll into the nation's capital, are signs he says possible. I'm not saying possible. I'm saying it was. A possible coup d'etat may be coming this weekend. Something very dangerous is up, they also pointed out. That such groups as Black Lives Matter and Antifa are openly claiming that they will mobilize over 1 million protesters into Washington, D.C. this weekend, he says. If that's the case, then why is the mayor of Washington, D.C. ordering National Guard troops out of the city? And worse, why is the Pentagon ordering any troops who remain, quote, not to use firearms? According to several intel sources, the action by Washington, D.C.'s mayor to have the words Black Lives Matter painted on the street that leads to the White House is a sort of announcement to President Trump that they are coming for him. Here's something else. Why were all the traffic cameras turned off? Why was a command and control plane circling near D.C.? Well, I'm not going to be able to get to all of that today, but I'll try to get to it tomorrow. But here's the summary. I believe, based upon many sources, especially the prophets, that D-Day, June 6, 2020, was the attempted overthrow of President Donald Trump, President of the United States. The plan was Saturday night the internal revolution was going to be started by the communists as they stormed the White House, overthrew Donald Trump, and got control of the nuclear football, the nuclear codes, control of our nuclear weapons. That was the plan. I may be the only one saying it, but Revelation 18 says, Babylon is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. If you're registered for the Sevenfold Miracle Crusade, July 29 to August 2, and you have not been contacted by someone from the Prophecy Club in the last few days, you need to email crusade@prophecyclub.com. If you are registered and have not been contacted, email us at crusade@prophecyclub.com. Email crusade@prophecyclub.com. Email crusade@prophecyclub.com. If you've not registered, we still have room. You would go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. For the books, go to prophecyclub.com. Crusade, go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. For food, go to heavensharvest.com. The code word is STAN, S-T-A-N. As you know, I make many broadcasts referring to a list of dreams, visions, audible voices I believe are from God, given to Dimitri Duduman, Michael Boldea, Leslie Johnson, Henry Groover, Shane Warren, Terry Bennett, Maurice Sklar, Augusto Perez, Doug Metzger, Bree Keaton, and more. Now you can have your very own copy. It's called God's Warnings to America. 1 for 20, 5 for 30, 10 for 55 at prophecyclub.com. God's Warnings to America at prophecyclub.com. In my new book, Miss the Mark, I expose the 9 deceptions the beast will use to deceive, if it were possible, even the very elect. Since Lucifer is only given 3.5 years to rule the world, but given 6,000 years to prepare for it, is it possible he has set up a 9-point plan so well thought out, so cunning, will deceive all whose name is not written in the book of life? What would you do if you had to tell a person the most important thing in the world, but you knew they wouldn't believe you? What would you do? Would you tell them? I believe you would. But what is the most important thing in the world to tell a person? The answer is, don't take the mark of the beast, because those taking the mark do not get soul death, but eternal torment in hell. But how do you tell them? Give them Miss the Mark. It is designed to be given to anyone, even if they've never heard of the Bible, Jesus, even if they're in another religion. It takes them from a blank page to making sure they will never take the mark. It's thin and easy to read. 1 for 20, but don't do that. Instead, we make them available in lots of 10. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, 40 for 60. That's 1 for 20, but don't do that. 10 for 25, 20 for 40, and 40 for 60 at prophecyclub.com. That's Miss the Mark. Don't take the mark of the beast, prophecyclub.com. Why should you come to the Sevenfold Miracle Crusade? Good question. We're going to get you prepared to teach prophecy, walk in sevenfold miracles. We all start our fast 8 p.m. Sunday night and break it together at the Passover meal when the meeting begins Wednesday, April the 8th. We all observe the Feast of Passover Unleavened Bread, First Fruits, asking God for miracles to begin. Leslie will anoint you with oil to receive a prophet's anointing and teach you through her school of the prophets, preparing you to walk in miracles. I will anoint you with oil to receive the spirit of revelation I received when I memorized the book of Revelation, and I will teach you how to teach and understand Bible prophecy. Deliverance sessions are also available. You'll also receive a personal prophecy from a senior prophet and have the opportunity to get water and spirit baptized. 3.5 awesome days preparing you to teach prophecy and walk in sevenfold miracles. Registration begins at $350 or $400 at the door. Go to sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com. sevenfoldmiraclecrusades.com.